What was the best moment you've seen where the real world hit a spoiled rich kid? Knew a rich kid whose parents bought a car for and he treated it like absolute garbage. Purposely driving it really hard and generally abusing it. Confident in the notion that his parents would buy him the one he wanted after he destroyed the one they got him. Well, they didn't buy him another one. Ever. He rode the city bus and bummed rides off of friends after that. He was the most entitled fricker I'd ever met. If he was over at your house he would just help himself to whatever was in the fridge like it was some sort of paid buffet. I saw Justin Bieber throw a poop fit and end up not getting what he wanted. We have quarterly team building exercises at my company where you basically go and play minigolf or some other activity capped at $25 person. Sometime between 2009 and 2011. I really can't remember exactly. My group just decided to go for a fancy lunch in downtown Portland. After lunch we took one of our co-workers to the semi-famous Nike store, which was a couple of blocks away, and that was the day Justin Bieber happened to show up. When he and his entourage arrived he said something somewhat loudly along the lines of "You're going to have to leave for a bit cause I'm here to do some shopping," and some of his people acted like they were going to try and politely force the already present customers out of the store so Bieber could shop alone, but the Nike employees even more politely told him that was not possible. At that point Bieber lost it. I mean, he threw a total tantrum because they wouldn't shut down the store for him. The tantrum didn't work and he and his folks left in a huff. That's really my only celebrity in the wild encounter, and it's freaking lame. Spoiled rich kid showed up to school in a $325,000 sports car. He was showing off. Lost control of the car and drove it through a brick wall and totaled it. Dad buys a rich kid a Mercedes. It was pinkish, salmon colored, so the kid bitched about it. Dad took it away, sold it, and never bought him another car. Rich brat had to buy his own. Saw a college guy with a ridiculously expensive car, can't remember the model, rear-end this woman who drove an absolute beater. Her car was definitely totaled and his wasn't looking that hot either. He got out and started screaming at this woman. She was in tears. He kept telling her that she was going to pay for this. When the cops came, I saw each of them give their statements. After that, me and like 10 people came forward and gave our witness statements. It sounded like each and every one of us put complete fault on him, which was the truth. When the cops went back to him, I saw his face just sink. He probably told them it was her fault and just found out that 2 handfuls of people just confirmed that he's full of poop. I've never seen that many witnesses stick around for a simple traffic accident. I think the other people felt the same way I did. That kid was a douche and should be punished for what he did. One of my college roommates was very rich growing up. I didn't realize just how rich until I had to explain to her what a coupon was in very extensive detail. On multiple occasions she bragged that she wasn't even interested in her major, philosophy, or college in general. But she was at uni because her parents were requiring her to get a degree. Any degree. In order to get access to her trust fund. I don't remember ever seeing her go to class, and she eventually got expelled sophomore year over academic dishonesty. I guess this was the last straw for her parents because they cut her off pretty soon after that. This actually served as a wake-up call. She somehow managed to get a public health degree at a different school in spite of the academic dishonesty listed on her transcript. She's doing pretty well for herself these days. We've kept in touch, and last we talked she was considering grad school. Local business owner puts son through college and more. When kid graduates with multiple degrees, dad decides to retire and turn over business to son. Son brings college cronies on board. Has management all wear white cowboy hats and drive white pickups. Begins revamping business. Dad comes out of retirement pronto. Gets rid of son and cronies. Years later bankrolls son's run for state rep. The son lost. Dad dies and leaves business to daughter. Here's a switch. Highly successful local doctor politician expects son to attend medical school and become doctor. Son opts out. Gets job with new company called Costco. Pumping gas. He's been with that company ever since. Just his regular pay raises and bonus checks give him a good life. He just didn't want the high stress life his dad had. About 10 years ago I was having a pint with a friend of mine. His family poop gold, I swear. I mentioned I was struggling with rent and bills while in college and he just said, "Get your mum to pay for it then, mate." Dart. She's disabled and we've never had real money. He instantly realized what he said and did feel bad about it. I think it was the first time he really understood that not everyone has their parents to lean on financially. Oh, I have one. I used to work at Starbucks and there was a girl that was just newly hired and in training. Mind you, she was 20 years old and her parents made her get a job. She grew up in a very wealthy family. On her first or second day, I had instructed her to do the dishes to help catch us up for closing. She looked at me with these lost eyes and told me she doesn't know how. Apparently she grew up with housemaids and literally has never cleaned a dish in her entire life. I had to teach her step by step how to clean a dish. Somewhat distant relative spent all of his university years and 20s partying hard with the 100-120k allowance his rich company owning father gave him each year. He'd travel the world each year, going to Bali, Thailand, Europe. Every year Oktoberfest. Just rampaging. At 32 or so he decided to settle an upscale ski resort area of the US and open a business with his hot gold digger fiancée. When he went to transfer his money to his US bank account he noticed it only came to a few $1,000s. He angrily asked the bank worker why she hadn't transferred the entire amount, only to be told that that was the entire amount. His father had cut him off without saying anything and he just hadn't noticed. Absolute flatline. While working in a casino here in Las Vegas, a herd of girls came to my window. And one proceeded to tell me about her great birthday party itinerary that her dad had paid for her 18th birthday. With no adult in the party. Just a bunch of teenage girls. Out in Vegas. Where none of them could do anything because none of them were 21. I couldn't even check them into their reservation. They start yelling and screaming at me. I calmly call security and security tells them they can either go play in the arcade or leave and try to find a hotel off the strip that will take them and W out being 21. The anger turns to tears. The security guard is unmoved. Rich scummy injury lawyer's kid was in my class in HS. Goes to college, mid-sized school in the Midwest, and gets plastered drunk. Parents bought him and his friends alcohol since freshman year, so nothing new, and Ra says he has to write him up for alcohol. In the dorms. Punches Taraz. Then gets cops called on him and knocks a cop's tooth out. Long story short, his parents have to drive back 6-7 hours after one day to get him and he's not even allowed to leave the state until his hearing. Last I heard he's working at a fast food establishment. I went to school with a kid who always had a new fancy car or truck because his dad owned one of the biggest construction companies in the area. This kid was a major douche and triple parked his big trucks all the time. Once he got some sort of fast fancy car and went over 110 miles per hour and was getting chased by state police. He had friends in the car that were telling him to stop and slow down, but he wouldn't. I believe he was also drunk. He ended up crashing into a business doing a ton of damage. He got hit with 3-4 felonies. Driving over 100 miles per hour is a crime in most states and he got multiple kidnapping charges because the passengers were freaking out. Dude never came back to school and I have no clue what he's doing now. Edit. To clarify, it was on normal street roads, not the freeway highway. Edit 2. My bad, not a felony for driving fast but for the attempted kidnapping. Freshman year of college, the guy across the hall from me is a spoiled rich kid from a big southern city. Old money clearly coming out his ass. A couple weeks into the second semester he and a buddy found a checkbook on the sidewalk. Stupid frikers decided to write themselves a check and cash it in the bank that the account is in. The teller immediately called the cops and they both got arrested. We talked the night he got arrested and he laughed and said his dad would take care of it and everything would be fine. That weekend we met his dad as they moved everything out of the dorms since his dumbass got expelled. Guess daddy didn't take care of it. In a country with high alcohol taxation, rich kids enter pub. Like 10-12 of them. Throw card at bartender. Demanding shots. What would y'all like? Dad is paying LMAO. Bartender pours double J. W. Blues for all the brats and some randoms that they treated. Dad's going to kill me. I did enjoy the free whiskey though. I knew one who apparently couldn't fathom how people live on a budget. We used to hang out a lot at her insistence, but she liked to eat at expensive places, whereas I'd have no issue having my meals somewhere cheaper. However, she kept pouting and insisting I stay. I said I couldn't unless she wanted to spot me. She didn't. I then walked her through the math and showed her that the cost of my meals with her every day totaled my entire wage for the month. She didn't stop pouting, but from then on I could eat by myself in peace. My best moment was when I got hired by a pair of Woodside CA parents to transition their horrible 18-year-old into the realities of real life. Something that evaded both of them. My first action was to take away his platinum limitless credit cards. He threw a tantrum that lasted several days. Where am I going to get money? Get a job. My parents will fire you. They didn't. When he realized that boundaries and budgets had been set in stone, and that he not only had to pay the bills, the rent, but taxes too, he headed straight to college to wait out the next 4 years. He is still a little jerk, but at least he has a job and an education now. A kid from my high school came from a well-known family that was very involved in politics. He slacked off in school and was mostly a condescending ass for years. After graduation, he didn't really do anything, but eventually decided to run for office as he had the same name as his father. He won easily, because people didn't realize it was the kid. As a state rep, he posted on Facebook about enjoying his women battered rather than plain, and asking to join the Black Caucus because he liked hip hop. He also dropped a loaded gun on the floor in the middle of a session after fighting for the right to carry a gun in the state house as a responsible gun owner. He kept getting elected despite these issues because his family was well connected and he had a dedicated following from some political groups. After 6 years in office, he gets busted for soliciting hanky-panky from a minor over the internet. When they arrest him for that, they also discover he's been dealing drugs. The worst part is that his family is actually super nice and genuinely made the community a better place. But now they have to deal with all the issues from him. He was an apple that fell very far from the tree. I had a roommate my freshman year of college that came from an incredibly rich oil family from the Middle East. I remember him having the hardest time adjusting to not having someone else prepare him food. I remember waking up one morning and going to the kitchen and seeing him try to eat eggs and toast he had just prepared himself. He asked me how I normally prepare fried eggs because his tasted really crunchy. Turns out he had just cracked the egg hole into the pan and prepared it shell and all. I couldn't stop laughing but felt really bad for the dude. No joke here. Back in high school, 90s, this kid got a brand new Chevy Camaro. I had an old ass 80s Pontiac Phoenix that had the straight six. It was by far not a racing car, but this tool was just looking to brag at what he got compared to the busted cars we got. About 2 days later, while we were waiting at a stoplight, this idiot tries to race us as I am in my car and I pull up with my friends. He does start by revving it really loud and tries to do a burnout. Mind you, the light was red and the roads were not wet, so he managed to get a tiny burnout going. Some smoke and whatnot. When his tires did catch traction, he went barreling into the intersection and smashed the car of the wife of one of the very few cops in my small city. Needless to say, that didn't work out for him very well. Not a person, but a whole community. We live in a very rich school system, with loads of big money parents and their cocky do you know my dad kids. I'm one of the few who isn't. Now, our baseball team has a team A and a team B. One which plays in an upper league, and one that plays in a lower league. Me and a few of my friends, who had all played since we were little, Played Team B. Like we always do. But this year, our A team was filled with the richest brats. All of whom had $700 equipment. And bragged about how good they were. We won our league. And Team A placed in the bottom of theirs. Now, to feel good about themselves, at least I assume, they scheduled an exhibition match with us. We got badly trash talked during the whole pre-game. About how all of our regular metal bats didn't even compare to their beautiful wooden ones with their names carved in honors, everything like that. Our coach told us not to hold back. We didn't. Fast forward 4 innings. And it's a forfeit from their coach. With a score of 13-0. They've gotten 2 people on base. But other than that, it's been shutout pitching from my brother. I'm his catcher. We had stellar batting all around. And boy, did we feel good about that retribution. Edit, my most liked post is about how I crushed some rich trash talkers. Satisfying. There was a kid in my school class who was a trust fund baby and he acted like it. He was picking on people one day, just talking unnecessary poop, and he called a girl a cow. She was overweight. He then got punched by a special education kid in class. And then when he contemplated retaliating against the special education kid, he then got punched by another student who was not special needs. He did not contemplating punching him. I knew a kid in high school whose parents were loaded. When he got his driver's license, they bought him a $70,000 Mercedes. Within a month or 2 he totaled the car while driving drunk. Parents pulled strings to get him off the full weight of the DUI. Oh. And they bought him another $70,000 Mercedes. He overdosed on a poop load of drugs and booze when he was 23. He's dead. I knew this rich kid from high school that went off to college and partied every single night. His parents found out that he was failing basically all of his classes. So they secretly drove up early one Saturday morning with the spare set of keys to the car they had bought him and just drove off with the car. I knew a guy in high school who bragged that he didn't have to pay attention in school because, get this, his grandfather was a vice president of the corporation that supplied the cardboard for cereal boxes. For General Mills. Real gravy train. Yeah, no. Last I checked, since deleted Facebook, he was still working at Best Buy 5 years after high school. Same job he had in high school. When I was a teenager, my sister and I saw through our windows that there were 2 guys getting into her car. We ran downstairs as fast as possible and caught them in the act. One managed to run away, but the other one froze and didn't run away. He couldn't have been much older than me. My sister called the cops and the kid kept looking at us and trying to find a way to escape. My sister said, "Run if you want. My brother will catch you." The cops came and so did his parents. His mom drove a freaking amazing car and the lady looked furious and sad. She was dressed really nice and looked like she was pretty successful. As soon as she got out, she began yelling, "Why?" Exclamation point. "We give you everything. You have everything. Why would you try and steal?" Exclamation point. "Don't we give you enough?" Exclamation point. The kid just seemed to shrink and get smaller. I don't get it. Fricking asshole. I hope he turned his life around and began to be around better people. One of my college roommates told his parents the trip we were planning, that they were paying for, was $400 more expensive than it was, so he could buy a really nice bong. In addition, they basically paid for everything he wanted. He had their credit card and ordered food on it at least once daily. He also would make $50 purchases off the card pretty regularly. Long story short, they found out he lied about the cost of the trip. For whatever reason, they still paid and let him go. But after the trip, he could not use their card anymore. This dude acted like he lived the hardest life of all time afterwards. But eventually sucked it up. He actually acts way less entitled now. It ended up having a lasting positive effect for him, even though he wouldn't admit it. Kid I knew won a cool $1 million off a scratch ticket when he was 19. Acted like a big shot. Arrogantly buying rounds of drinks for entire bars. Didn't do poop for 20 years. Then got the last check alcoholic. No savings. No assets. No skills. He's now in and out of hospitals for alcohol poisoning and mental breakdowns. Lost his paper hat job. His GF. Everything. A friend of mine from college whose parents were rich enough to have a multi-million-dollar home in America and in Europe used to poop on me for saying I was happy to go to whatever medical school I could get into. I ended up getting into my state school and she responded by saying that she could get into that school in a second because her mom has connections in the admissions department, but she would never bother applying there because it's not even a good school. She also made the same claim that her mom could get her into a specific top 20 ranked school. All through college she had this attitude with me about how even though I was doing better than her in classes, I was going to go to whatever school would take me and she was going to go to her dream school because that's just how the world works. I checked up on her on Facebook this year and she's not exactly at her dream school. It turns out she is at her state medical school, which is actually significantly lower ranked than the one she was making fun of me for attending. I don't want to say I was hoping she wouldn't get in anywhere because that's a little harsh, but I was happy to see her get put in her place a little bit. That one Instagram model who got caught on video talking pooped a security guard at VidCon. Not only did the guard stand his ground and not let him in, because he wasn't famous enough to be given a pass and too rich to just buy one, but once the internet saw the video, the guard ended up with more followers than the kid. It was more surprising that someone could be so out of touch than anything. My boyfriend's roommate is 19 and runs a very successful online business. Lives in LA. Buys news clothes, including $2.500 sneakers, without a second thought. And despite growing up without much money, is very out of touch. I was sick while visiting and he told me to visit the doctor. I don't have great insurance and was already juggling other bills, so I told him I couldn't afford it with how much I get paid at my part-time convenience store job. He asked how much I got paid. $9.80 an hour. I get paid a little under $200 every 2 weeks. He was so taken aback. This man was so surprised that I was working my ass off with school, a job, and an internship and still lived on about $100 a week. He still bothered me about going to the doctor but offered to help me out if I needed it. The worst part is $9.80 is pretty good for a job at the university I attend. I was really happy with the pay. Edit, I don't live in LA and $9.80 is well above min wage in my state. I live in dorms and scholarships cover that, so $100 a week is groceries and damp incidentals. Not great, but definitely livable. Thanks to everyone who was concerned though. Classmate in college failed his course. Partied for a year with dad's money. Never studied. Ever. Thing is, inheriting his father's construction company to quarries. A fleet of trucks and damp equipment depended on him manning up and damp passing the class. All he had to do was learn the basics of mechanical diagnostic and damp repair and be set for life. Make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell. Let us know your thoughts on this topic. See you soon.